four things I learned about through this course stems from the study of research that I did on the case studies. I had very little knowledge about law and courtrooms before I started this class, and the cases were very interesting to me. Hopefully in the future, as an athletic director, this class gave me some insight to some of the legal problems that can occur for an athletic director or a school district. The first thing that I learned this year was drug testing is considered constitutional. The court case Verona School District versus Acton was about James Acton, an 8th grader whose parents refused to sign the release form to have him drug tested. The school district was having a large drug problem, and a lot of athletes were involved in the drug problem. The school district decided to implement a drug testing policy for all athletes and organizations. The case that Acton filed stated that he could not be drug tested because they had no probable cause, and it was unconstitutional to search him. This was an interesting case to me because most school districts now do drug test. The court decision was made by the Supreme Court and led the way for other school districts to implement drug testing. The one question I do have about it that I would like to do more research on is my school district also drug tests anyone who drives their school or drives their cars to school, and I would like to find out if there was a court case to find that constitutional. The second thing that I learned was when we did research on Title IX during week 5. I learned that every school district must have a Title IX coordinator. The responsibility of the coordinator is for setting up procedures for handling any complaints concerning sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, or sexual violence. My athletic director is also the Title IX coordinator for the district. He is responsible for making sure the practice schedule, location, and field time are equal between the boys and the girls sports. He is also responsible for ensuring that teams playing the same sport, example boys and girls basketball, have equal budgets. There must be the same number of sports for females to participate in as athletes. I also found that it also needs to be equivalent according to the enrollment of the school. I hope to have the athletic director's job within 5 years, so understanding Title IX is very important. It is more important than just making sure there's the same number of sports for both boys and girls. The third thing I learned this year was when I researched Dilger versus Moyles, and I learned about the doctrine primary assumption of risk. This was an interesting case to me because it involved an individual being injured on a golf course by an errant shot. As a golf coach for both boys and girls, I've always wondered if people can be held responsible for hitting a bad shot and injuring someone. The doctrine states that when an individual takes part in an activity like any competitive sport, there is a risk of being injured. The case involved a golfer, and golf was not listed as a risky activity underneath the California doctrine. The doctrine is a defense tool to be used in court cases. I don't think sports or athletics could survive without this doctrine. Risk of injury is always possible in any sport. If there were lawsuits against teammates or opponents every time someone was injured, people would not take on that risk of playing. The district court and the Court of Appeals both found Moyles not guilty. The district judge stated that anytime a golfer hits a golf ball, the chances of it going exactly where the golfer intended are very slim. He also said that if every shot a golfer hit went exactly where they wanted, it wouldn't be much of a sport. This shows that there is risk involved in golf. The appeals judge dismissed the case, stating that this would encourage more lawsuits and would deter people from playing the game. The last thing that I learned about this year was also about Title IX, and it was Favia versus Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I learned more about Title IX, and even though a school may look like it on the surface, being compliant to Title IX, a lot of times they are not. University of Indiana, Pennsylvania needed to make budget cuts of $350,000 to their athletic budget. They formed a committee and tried to cut both 2 boys sports and 2 girls sports, knocking them both down to having an equal number of 7. But after it went to, Fabia was one of the members of a team that got cut. When they brought the case against the university and it went to court, they found many problems that the court already had, or that the school already had. The school enrollment was just under $11,000 and consisted of 56% female and 44% male. Of the athletes at the school, 62% were male and 38% were female. Scholarship money for the athletics consisted of 79% going to male sports and 21% going to female sports. The court also discovered that expenditures for the sexes, $8 for male athletes compared to $2.75 for every female athlete. Both the appeals court and the district court found University of Indiana, Pennsylvania guilty of Title IX, or not following Title IX, and there were 3 factors when it came to not following it. One was the participation of interscholastic athletes need to be proportionate to the enrollment of the school. The university was not in the practice of expanding female athletes. In fact, they were cutting 2 of the sports. And much like number 2, the school needed to show that they were trying to expand women's sports. The cuts decreased the amount of teams instead of expanding them. When it comes to budget cuts, all decisions are tough to make. In this case, the school athletic department had a lot of Title IX violations before the cuts, and the cuts made it worse. As an athletic director in the future, I realize I'm going to have to be aware of all these laws before any decisions can be made.